Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Shabir Ali. My question is, there were some manuscripts discovered in the Israeli desert known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. From the last time I checked the scholarship on this, is that it comes really close to the Islamic point of view, to the dismay of some, if you'd like to say, Christians. Can you shed light on this issue and exactly which books were discovered in the Israeli desert and how it comes really close to the Islamic point of view? There is a debate between Islam and Christianity on so many theological issues. Jazakallah.
Should have brought my pedometer today.
You're going to get good exercise. Now, the Dead Sea Scrolls are referred to a set of documents that were discovered in the year 1947. And these are scrolls that were left buried from a community that lived around the area of the Dead Sea in caves around the 1st century BC and the 1st century AD. So that means just before Christ and a little bit after Christ, until the destruction of the temple and the exodus of the Jewish people from that Palestine region during the Jewish revolt in the year 66 to 70 of our common era. So I said BC and AD. Nowadays, academic scholars say BCE and CE, before the common era and the common era, to avoid saying Christ and making Christ central to the dating, because they say the dating should be universal for all people, not Christocentric. So that's only a modern sensitivity that I thought I should point out. But I've used the term BCE and I've used the term BC and AD because that's what most people have learned in school, and we still remember it that way, right? Okay, so about 100 years before Jesus, and for another a little bit more than half century after Jesus, there were these Jewish communities there, referred to as Qumran communities, named after the place where these Dead Sea Scrolls were found. And they had naturally copies of the Bible, and that they were reading and studying, but they also had documents which are particular to that community. For example, they had a document that is now referred to as the War Scroll, and they had a document entitled Manual of Discipline. So they were a disciplined community who in some way was ready to go to war, if necessary, against the Romans to reinstate the law of God. Since the David monarchy had been out of vogue for many centuries. David was a king, so too was his son Solomon, and after in the time of his king Solomon, there was discontent among the Israelites with Solomon's rule. It is said in the Bible, and after him the kingdom split between Israel in the north and Judah in the south. And eventually the Babylonians came in and sacked the Israelite rule and took the Israelite elite into captivity, into Babylon. And there has always been a lasting hope among the Israelites that eventually they will overthrow foreign rule and institute the law of God. So the people of the Dead Sea Scrolls were apparently preparing for this. They had secluded themselves from society, not wanting to live under Roman rule, and they were governing themselves according to their own rules, which they understood to be the law of God for their community. When their scrolls were discovered, and among their scrolls were found to be copies of the Bible, the various books of the Bible, it was necessary then to revise some of the Bible to bring that into agreement with some of the Dead Sea Scrolls wording of some passages, because what is found in the Dead Sea Scrolls were thought to be more ancient than some copies of the Bible which had been in existence and which had been the basis for modern translations of the Bible. So, but those modifications and improvements were largely of a fairly minor nature when it comes to the disputes that occur of a theological nature between Muslims and Christians. The matters of theological importance between Muslims and Christians are basically three. Is Jesus God, and by extension is God a Trinity? Two, did Jesus die for the sins of humankind, or must we do what is right to please God, and so seek God's forgiveness for our sins with nobody paying the price for your sin? And three, do we go for our final information to the Quran or to the Bible? I think these are the three main issues that are there theologically between Muslims and Christians, and the Dead Sea Scrolls do very little to settle these issues. This we do not have any information about from the Dead Sea Scrolls, about the crucifixion of Jesus. Though you're right, this is also one of the issues, but this is not one of the three major issues. The three major issues I've identified is, like, even if he's crucified, what is the purpose of his crucifixion? Is that for the sins of humankind, or did he die as a martyr? So I think that's where the crux of the issue is. But unfortunately, the Dead Sea Scrolls do not allow us to answer this question. What maybe you're referring to, not that you mentioned crucifixion, perhaps you're referring to not to the Dead Sea Scrolls, but another set of documents that were discovered actually 2 years before the Dead Sea Scrolls. In 1945, another set of documents were discovered. Dead Sea Scrolls, 1947. Nag Hammadi Library. The Nag Hammadi Library was discovered in 1945. This was a library, a cache of documents that come from early Christian centuries, from the 2nd and 3rd centuries of Christianity. They were buried sometime in the 4th century when Constantine had become a Christian and Christianity had become Roman Christianity. The religion and the state had merged, and now certain books were banned to be read. So those who wanted to preserve their banned books put them in clay jars and hid them in the Egyptian desert, and they were later on discovered in 1945. They're referred to as the Nag Hammadi Library, a wide collection of documents. Many of them are characterized as Gnostic documents. They refer to or describe a form of Christianity that is now referred to as Gnostic Christianity. Gnostic, after the idea from Greek gnosis, which means to know. So there were some Christians who felt themselves to have a higher form of knowledge, and they came to be referred to as Gnostic Christians. Among these documents, there are at least three which show that Jesus was not on the cross. Or if something like him was on the cross, that's only a physical part of him, but it's not the true spiritual person. While people would look and see that there is Jesus on the cross, Jesus would be talking to Peter from the side, for example. So Peter looks at Jesus and says, "But you're there." And he says, "No, that's not me. That's only a physical representation of me, but I am the real one," and so on. So there are documents like this among the Nag Hammadi library.